Hello there everybody, What Culture Wrestling's Adam Cleary here, and not to pull back the curtain on our production process too much, but I was, just the other day I was browsing our incredibly high quality website, whatculture.com/WWE, when I saw an article that caught my eye. And that article was, shout out to Sam Hassan, our contributor who wrote it, 10 WWE stars who will soon be All Elite, and it was this fun, light-hearted, irreverent look at some stars currently in WWE who, for whatever reason, they can't get on television or their contracts are coming up and they would be good pickups for AEW. Now, Sam here, he wrote this article on the 25th of March, not very long ago, I'm sure you'll agree, but in the time since that was published, and me sitting on this sofa, half the people on that list got sacked. They're all, most of them are already gone. And under normal circumstances, as a writer, you would take great professional pride in going, oh, look at me, I've correctly and accurately predicted these forthcoming releases, but given these circumstances, which involve WWE callously, vindictively, coldly, brutally, harshly, savagely releasing upwards of 30 plus superstars last week, it's not fun. We can't really be too smug about that. However, now that the wounds aren't as fresh as they were last week, it is probably as good a time as any to start looking at where some of these stars could end up in the near future. What does the future hold for them in the ring? What does the future hold for them outside of the ring? Where might we see them performing next? And while there is potentially a spoiler in this introduction by telling you half of them have already been sacked, there is another half who could still end up in AEW through hook or by crook. So with that in mind, and me about to message Sam and ask where the hell you buy a crystal ball that good, my name is Adam Cleary and these are 10 WWE stars, sort of, who will soon be All Elite. Number 10, Rusev. Yeah, I'm not even making this up. Literally the first entry in that entire list was Rusev. That is Sam, mate. That's some game. Now, in the article, which as I say was written at the end of March, the reasons for Rusev not being in WWE for much longer are that he is just grossly underused. The guy was initially billed as a super athlete from sort of Russia, and the things he could do in other companies is astounding. That man in the G1, for example, would be a sight to behold, but simply just on Dynamite every single week would give them something that they don't otherwise have. They've got very athletic performers, yes, they've got a couple of big bruiser performers, yes, but they don't have anybody like Rusev because, well, there isn't anybody like Rusev. Since his feud with Bobby Lashley, he's not really managed to do anything in that company. The guy clearly desperately wants out of it, and wouldn't you just know it, within 2 weeks of that article getting published, he got his wish. Rusev is now a free agent, and Jim Ross has gone on record to say that he should be AEW's #1 priority. Unlike a lot of other people who've been released, he hasn't got any big ties to these other promotions, to these other performers, but they should move mountains, any size mountains, the biggest mountains you or I could imagine, they should move them to get Rusev. Number 9, Zack Ryder. I'm not even making this up either, literally the second name he had on that list was Zack Ryder. This is, honestly, Sam. And I'm just going to read you out the first line of what he wrote about Zack Ryder here, right? This may sound like a strange one. Ryder has been part of the WWE furniture for so long, you almost presume he'll always be there. Sure, he won't be doing much aside from getting jobbed out here and there, but he'll be there nonetheless. Or will he? The thing is, if it had been up to Zack Ryder, that probably would be true. He would have loved to have just remained part of the furniture at WWE. It's okay for some wrestlers not to dream of being world champion. The card needs to be structured with professionals from bottom to top. And Zack Ryder just loves doing wrestling. He loves being creative. He loves getting to work with these people. He would have happily stayed there for his entire career, you must imagine. But even Cody himself has mentioned this name when talking about who he'd like to work with. And the thing is, it's important to remember at this stage that not every single person who leaves WWE is automatically a good fit for AEW. Yes, they may get a mega pop upon their arrival because they're a recognizable name, but there's a lot more to it than that. AEW prides itself on being a bit of a variety show. They have different types of wrestling, different types of performers. They have everything wrestling fans could possibly want, loads of it different all over the place, etc., etc. Anyway, my point is, Zack Ryder, he is an incredibly charismatic man, and he's an incredibly creative performer. He could easily come up with something to do on that show. It's unclear what his contract situation is with WWE, but if and when it does expire, you can expect some elite folk to make an offer or two. Oh, that's really sad. Number 8, Mike and Maria Kanellis. genuinely starting to suspect now that Sam might be Vince McMahon. The really scary thing about this is we've always been convinced that Vince McMahon has bugged the office in some way, shape or form, because a lot of our partner does end up in WWE one way or another. So maybe it's Sam, maybe this is just the guy. Maybe he's really Vince. Anyway, kind of similar to Zack Ryder, Mike and Maria Kanellis, they were comfortable in that company even if they weren't being utilized particularly well. In a recent interview, Mike's even gone on record to say that the whole cooking storyline of Maria just beating him down and it may not even be his son, that was originally pitched by Paul Heyman. It was going to be something far more interesting, and they didn't see it as being humiliated on television. They were very happy to be involved in that storyline. Plus, if you watched any of Mike's work in 205 Live, you will know that he can go. He is a perfect pickup for AEW, to be completely honest, because he is somebody who, even though he's a recognizable figure from WWE, he's never been recognizable on a talent level in WWE. 99% of people who watch WWE have no idea how good Mike Bennett / Kanellis actually is, and he could make a huge name for himself as a result of going to AEW. Like, take that springboard you have from people roughly knowing who you are, and then use the platform of this new show to show them what they were missing out on. And the same kind of goes for Maria, because while she's just had 2 children in WWE, and again, you've not seen too much of her in the ring, her time in other promotions shows that she too is surprisingly talented, at least a lot more talented than you would have seen during a time on Raw. So that's 2 for the price of 1. Number 7, EC3. I'm not even making this up either. Look, this is literally the article, and that is literally EC. It's terrifying, this. And my God, can you even remember EC3's introduction into WWE? He was such a huge pickup for the company from TNA. He was their golden boy, then he went to NXT, and we thought they would do big things with him in NXT, but then we're like, nah, he's probably more suited to the main roster, so they pulled him straight up from there and put him in a feud with Dean Ambrose of all people. The stage looked set for this being amazing, and then he just did the Red Cup thing, and that's literally all you can remember him for, his entire time there. It's I get that EC3 is not the greatest technical wrestler in the world, and WWE seems to love getting good technical wrestlers without ever letting them do particularly good technical wrestling matches, but the guy's charisma is incredible. As we've already seen from the stuff he's done since he's been released, the guy is just oozing charisma, oozing gimmicks, oozing charm, oozing personality. AEW should put that to use urgently. Number 6, Shinsuke Nakamura. Now, Nakamura is a bit of a weird inclusion in this list because the consensus has long since been that the guy considers his art pro wrestling done. He's left his legacy as an artistic creator in the wrestling world, and now he's doing his money pro wrestling, basically putting aside a very nice little retirement fund in WWE without really straining himself too much. But then over the last couple of months, there's just been this little suggestion here and there, this little seed planted that perhaps he wasn't as happy with all that as we thought. He'd been complaining backstage that he wasn't getting a fair crack of the whip, and then he found himself Intercontinental Champion. He's been doing all this stuff with Sami Zayn. He does feel more prominently featured on the show since these rumours started, so maybe there is some truth to them. And if there is also some talk alongside all of that, which I should say is completely unverified at this stage, that his contract is up in not too very long. It's certainly down to its last year, possibly, and if it is, and he wants to just get one more little run at it, he could have a revival of his feud with Kenny Omega. There are so many people in AEW who either did or didn't share the ring with in New Japan, so the rivalries you can either start or pick up again as a result. I think if he wants to do his money wrestling, he probably made that decision before there was genuine money competition to WWE, so all that stuff that was said back then might not be as true. Number 5, Shorty G. Chad Gable is one of the most technically gifted professional wrestlers in the entire world, and they have him go out there in baggy basketball shorts wearing a giant G with little centimeter markings on it because he is, and I can't stop saying this, literally 1 inch shorter than the average American male. I despise this gimmick, I hate it, and I hope he murders somebody on his way out of the company. Let's get him in AEW and let's get him to do a long, brutal feud with Pac. Please, I don't ask for a lot. Number 4, Cesaro. Now, depending on your stance on Cesaro, he's either the most underutilized, underappreciated, wasted talent in WWE history, or he's just like a perennial tag team guy who's never quite been as good as some sections of his fan base would have you believe. But either way, it's hard to dispute the fact that he's not making the most of his potential, by whatever caliber you judge that, in WWE. Like right now, he's entertaining, he's having a lot of fun, he's part of Sami Zayn's band of semi-serial losers, but he's not all that he could be. And for what it's worth, I've always thought that if Cesaro ever does leave WWE, he should go to New Japan instead, because can you imagine? This is an image Sidgwick put in my head, by the way, right? It's the G1, it's getting to the closing stages. Will Ospreay comes off the top rope with that forearm thing, and Cesaro just gets him in midair with his forearm uppercut thing. Instead, nearly takes his head clean off. Would that not be one of the best things you'd ever seen in professional wrestling? Yes, it would. Besides, if he ever does leave and AEW would have him, then I mean, the article's got everything else right so far, so. Number 3, Sami Zayn. Now that he is Intercontinental Champion, you could very easily make the argument that Sami Zayn has never been in a better position in WWE. They never seem to trust him with a good storyline or with a good feud or with a good rival or anything for all too long, but now that he's got a nice belt and a good rivalry with Daniel Bryan, things are looking good. But the thing is, the guy was touted as a bona fide main eventer when he arrived in that company, and he was made a bona fide main eventer when he was in NXT, and then when he got to the main roster, he's perennial jobber, he's Kevin Owens' mate, he's a big old loser, and now, finally, because he's expressing his political opinions on Twitter, Vince has gone, what a goddamn obnoxious son of a bitch, let's give him something to do. So Sami Zayn could keep that Intercontinental title for years and years and years and years and years and years and years now, and it would still just largely be so Vince can have other people beat him up at some point. Basically, the guy is a great wrestler, he's a great dude into the bargain, and that's pretty much the two things AEW seems to look for when hiring people. He could have a good old run there. I do think, though, just maybe slightly think that if Sami Zayn ever did leave, he'd want to go have a much smaller run on the indies, go do every single promotion in North America, maybe come over to the UK for a little bit, because Sami Zayn in a room full of 20,000 people doesn't really feel like it works, but Sami Zayn in front of 200 people be the greatest night of their lives, that. Number 2, Cedric Alexander. Now, I am really here big time for Cedric Alexander and Ricochet as a tag team. I don't think either of them are best utilised as a tag team, but given how they've both been used over the last couple of months, I'm very happy to see them being on television in this way. But the question is, how long's that gonna last? Because you see, to me, this absolutely smacks of them trying to build Ricochet back up. Like, they kind of do see the value in him because he's a real-life superhero, but they're aware that they absolutely buried him after the whole Lesnar thing. So they do this tag team, they have a bit of a run, maybe even the tag team champions at some point, and then they break up. Ricochet demolishes Cedric Alexander in a short feud, and then he's kind of back in the singles picture, and everybody just forgets that Cedric exists again. But I think, as we all saw when he was initially just randomly pulled off 205 Live and dropped onto the main roster for that feud with AJ Styles, Cedric Alexander is really, 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 really good. Given how badly utilised he is probably still one of the top 10 or 15 most technically proficient, exciting to watch pro wrestlers in WWE. And if he ever leaves that company, the offers to sign him up will be, Jesus God, the money people will throw to get Cedric Alexander in. And I think AEW is a perfect position for him because he's a great North American wrestler. Like, he's got that nice combination of like high-flying stuff that he's taken from Mexican influences with the sort of brutal hitting style of stuff he's seen in Japan, and yet digests it and makes it all really good for a casual North American TV audience. The guy should be like constant United States or Intercontinental Champion in that company, so hopefully they can do something with him in AEW. Number 1, The Revival. Sorry, just one last time. Just one last time. They were top 1, literally the top 1 on the list. No words. I think, as we've all just seen from Vince McMahon's apparent pitch to The Revival to revive their characters with those weird, like, St. Patrick's Day clown costume things, WWE just had no idea, zip zilch whatsoever, how best to use The Revival. They were this serious tag team doing serious tag team wrestling and seriously legitimizing it as an entire concept in a company that just fundamentally did not care at all about tag team wrestling. It was never going to work. Pretty much from the exact moment they were plucked from NXT and put on the main roster, it was over for them because the company was just never gonna get it. Like, every time a new team wins the tag team titles, they're like, oh, we're gonna bring these belts back to their former glory, and everybody just goes, no, you're not. And that was never more true than with The Revival. Every single time they got another feud or another run or the belts got put on them again, we thought, maybe, please, maybe this is the time, maybe just let them have some good back and forth rivalries. There's so many good tag teams they could feud with, and then they just get chumped out, or they get their balls set on fire, or they lose handicap matches. It's just, I despair. And not that I'm saying they've taken particular delight in this, but the Young Bucks and Cody have certainly enjoyed stirring the pot. Their constant hints, their constant teasers about getting the Revival involved have been, well, not subtle. And if they're not already going to that company by the time I'm recording this video, they probably will be by the time it goes out. Yes, the last time you saw them was WWE. Yes, I guess a lot of people still think of them as WWE wrestlers, but they will very, very soon, my friends, be All Elite. So there you have it, my friends. Those were 10 wrestlers who will soon be All Elite, written by our contributor Sam Hassan, who I'm about to ask if he's got any lottery numbers. Let me know what you made of it all in the comments below, as well as any other wrestlers you think should be heading to AEW. And of course, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. In the meantime, though, thank you so much for watching. I have, of course, been Adam Cleary. And I'll see you. I don't know what that was, but I'll see you soon. Goodbye.